Hello Earthlings, I still have both my earrings. This is a bit of an impromptu video because I managed to finish Tina Brown's The Palace Papers. So I thought straight away I'm going to do a book review because I didn't want to review it until I'd actually finished it, to give the girl, you know, 100% of my attention. I've got to say it took me months to read it. It wasn't an easy read. It was something I just kept putting down. So then I thought, well, I've got so many books on the royal family, I'll do a bit of a review on all of them. So I've got them all here. I'll just give you a scan on the table. Obviously I've got Tina Brown's Palace Papers. I've got it open on a particular page. I've also got Ken Wharfe, Patrick Jobson, Paul Burrell. This particularly dry legal read, which I'll come to in a minute. This one is Lady C's The Queen Mother. So this is not going to be a long thing because I'm not really much into book clubs. I'm not despite all that lot, I'm not a big reader. Actually, I don't have time. Ever since my kids came along, that was an end to it. One of them's 21 and one of them's 18 now, so I've got half a chance. But I first read Paul Burrell's A Royal Duty, which I know there has been a lot of controversy about. Now, I couldn't put it down. It was a real page-turner. It's really about Paul's life in service as working for the royal family, and I found it fascinating because a lot of the comparisons and the way that they live, it really rang true to me. It was a lot like my mum and dad. Really not an awful lot to write home about, just like ordinary everyday things, which is lovely, because then you realise the royals, they're just human beings. And I loved Paul's book. I did not buy it. When Graham was working on the bins, talking about would Meghan have married Harry had he been a bin man? I don't think so. Well, I have been married to a bin man. Graham did the bins and he found this. It was outside a charity shop, actually. It's terrible. It should have gone to the charity shop. But he brought it home. And I didn't have time to read it because the kids were little and I was doing a cleaning job and commuting in Brighton traffic. So we carted it all over Europe with us. We took it to Gibraltar, and then when we moved to Spain, and then I think it was in the lockdown I finally read it, and I just thought, wow. And he had all that criticism, and everybody said, oh, you shouldn't write a book about the royals, but there have been an awful lot of other people who have written books about the royals, including, of course, Ken Wharfe. This is all back to front, of course. I read that. I enjoyed it, not as much as Paul's. He obviously doesn't like Paul. I don't think he likes Paul. Paul was nice to everybody in his book. Ken is very typical of a, you know, burly copper, protection guard. I particularly liked one part in Ken's book when Princess Diana escaped, without his permission, from a chalet somewhere in the Alps. And they realised she'd gone missing, and Ken went outside and he said there was a Princess Diana shape in the snow beneath her bedroom window. And I laughed about that for days. I thought that was hilarious. But he did, they had brushes, apparently, according to his book. So then I thought, well, there's the butler, the bodyguard. Let's try the private secretary, Patrick Jobson. And I do tend to read any article Patrick writes in the Daily Mail or one of the ones where I don't have to pay to subscribe. But I found that one a bit difficult going as well, because I'm not very good at reading, actually, and he uses a lot of great big long sentences and references to things I don't know what he's talking about. And he cracked some joke about how Princess Diana, you know, she didn't really understand Fawlty Towers jokes and all that, because all us little women, we're all a bit stupid, aren't we? But I've only read a tiny weeny, I've read like that much of Patrick's book. So again, I don't want to criticise the guy without having read the whole thing. Now, this book, Lady C. Lady C has written so many books, and I would love to read all of them, I really would. But this is the only one I've ever read, The Queen Mother. It's called The Untold Life of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, by Lady Colin Campbell. And it's fascinating, and I chose this one because I can't afford to buy all of Lady C's books, and I certainly wouldn't have the time to read all of them because my family bother me every 5 seconds. So I figured the Queen Mother lived to 102, I think. She certainly covered the abdication, She was also, when she got engaged to George VI, the Queen's father, she met a lot of the very older royalty that were living at Sandringham, and then she went right through Diana. So I figured because she lived such a long time, there would be a lot in there, and there is a lot in there, and I highly recommend that as a read. I highly recommend it. And Lady C is very well connected, and she talks about her ex-deceased mother-in-law, stepmother-in-law, Margaret, Duchess of Argyll. I think I've got that title right. The one thing I will say, Lady C is fastidious to give everybody their correct titles. So the first couple of chapters are quite hard, because every time she talks about someone, she puts their full title. Well, in the first instance, the full title, and then she begins to shorten it. And what I did was I googled these characters, so I had a picture of them in my mind, and she shortens it till she gets to first name. So she's very correct in the way she addresses them all, and I really enjoyed that. And I will buy more Lady C books as a result of that. Now, she actually, having read this Queen Mother's book, it led me to order another book off Amazon. And I'm not going to say what the connection is or why, but this one is called How They Murdered Princess Diana, The Shocking Truth by John Morgan. Now this one, if you look at that, that is an exceptionally thick and I would say dry read. It reminded me of studying law. There's a lot of legal documents in there. There's a lot of copies of things like autopsy reports. I love the TV show Columbo. Now, I'm not saying Princess Diana was murdered or wasn't, but I thought I always explore all possibilities. And as Lieutenant Columbo might say, there are things that bother me. And one of the things that bothers me in this book is on page 464, where they explained that Diana's seatbelt clip was defective. But they say that it became defective after the accident. Well, on the tow truck, between the tow truck and the police pound, it became defective. And that bothers me a lot. Was it defective or wasn't it defective? So it's definitely worth a read, and there's not just that. There's an awful lot of other stuff in there which bothers me. A lot of stuff. But I won't go into that. So, coming back to the Palace Papers, there was talk at one point of Meghan's people saying maybe Meghan would sue Tina Brown. Well, I always put my face to these things, my real name, and I'll say this as if Tina was sitting in front of me right now. Any rumours of Meghan Markle suing Tina Brown? Why? What, for too much butt kissing? I'm sorry, no. The Queen in it is a boring little old British granny in a cardigan, whereas Doria's fabulous. There were some interesting parts in the early chapters about Charles and Camilla that I didn't know about. There were one or two tiny things I didn't know about with Princess Diana, but and I just read this today because this was the last part of the book, about the COP thing they did in Glasgow, where all the world leaders went and the Queen went. Well, almost all world leaders went. Everyone who was anyone. I don't think Putin went, did he? He was probably busy thinking about something else at that stage. But Tina goes on about, you know, how they were all at Glasgow for this COP thing, the Queen, William, Charles, Camilla, Catherine and all that. But the Sussexes were undisputed world superstars to the roaring throng of 60,000 attendees of the Global Citizen Live concert in New York's Central Park. That was the one where Meghan wore the white mini dress. Really, Tina? And I'd say this to your face, really? So all the world leaders with the Queen of England, the head of the Commonwealth, in Glasgow, that all paled into insignificance compared to Meghan's, how did you put it? World superstars, undisputed world superstars. Can anyone explain to me why Meghan would sue Tina? She didn't put enough cream and sugar in it or something. I'm not suggesting Tina Brown was paid to write this book. A lot of the book is stuff I've read in newspapers. Now, I don't like throwing books in the bin. I never do. I would always give them to someone else. So somehow, one of you is going to have to draw the short straw, okay? One of you is going to have this book, and I will sign it with my comments in the front. What I thought. It took me ages to read that. It certainly wasn't a page turner. It wasn't something where I just couldn't put it down. Absolutely not. And it cost me €24. And I'm not going to do a review on Amazon. I can't even be bothered to do that. What I am waiting for is Tom Bower's book to come out, because I've noticed something about all of them. They all say things like an intimate account, the true story. Mine's the true story. This is closely scrutinised. I'm telling the truth. And the other thing about Tina and this book, right, is she look at the pictures there. Camilla looks quite frosty. The Queen looks frosty. Kate looks frosty. Meghan looks like she's looking at the egg. Do you know what I mean? Let's have a look at the back picture. Oh, and Andrew. She goes on about Andrew in it a lot. Now, I'm not interested. I just skip the paragraph. Andrew. I just skip them. I think that's how I got through the last 3 chapters, actually. The Andrew thing's been scrutinised all over the TV, all over the newspaper. They're banging on and on and on and on about it. The guy's never been convicted of anything. Andrew. I'm sorry, no, I'm not interested in that. Did not pay €24 to listen to Andrew and Emily Maitlis, and you know, like, I think Emily Maitlis and Andrew, they were on the telly. Everybody saw it on the telly. They don't need to read about it in a book, do they? About what they saw on the telly, do they? And how crusty and fusty and dusty the Windsors are, and boring without Harry and Meghan's superpower superstar dust. Then why marry into it? Why so many people write so many books about them? Why so many people buy the books and read the books? Why is The Crown the top crowning glory of Netflix? If the Windsors are so fusty, dusty, crusty, why bother with it all? Let's be done with it all. Let's get rid of it all. Because no, nonsense. And oh well, why don't we just replace it with Meghan? We could throw the Queen out of Windsor Castle, Buckingham Palace, and we just have Meghan. Wouldn't that be fabulous, everybody? I'm sorry, I think the fact that I have very little respect for Meghan Markle is possibly shining through in this video. And I never even heard of Tina Brown before. And I don't know who she is. She's some sort of journalist or ex-editor or something. I wouldn't, personally, you guys might like it. I'll try and figure out some kind of an email address. And then any of you gluttons for punishment out there can email me if you want a copy, and I'll put it in a hat, and I'll get my cat to choose. And then you can be the victim of the week. Anyway, that's my 2 pennies for what it's worth. Hope you're all having a fabulous day, Earthlings. Love the comments, and I would love to hear the comments in this, especially if anyone's read the Palace Papers. The media bigged it up as if there was going to be something shocking in it. Roll on Tom Bower. That's all I can say. Can't wait for that one.